I never wanted it to end this way. Not with my marriages, and definitely not with my kids. That's the moment that stopped everyone cold. Kody Brown finally said something real, something he'd avoided for years, and he knew it. It wasn't a speech, it wasn't rehearsed, and it wasn't done for the cameras. It slipped out of him like a truth he'd been holding underwater. He went quiet the second he said it, and the room went even quieter. No jokes, no excuses, just a man who suddenly sounded tired. If you've followed the Brown family for years, you know Kody almost never shows cracks. He'll raise his voice, he'll point fingers, he'll blame, he'll spin a story until it becomes something no one recognizes. But an admission? A real one. Never. Not until now. So today, we're digging into everything behind that moment because his silence wasn't really silence at all. It was the first time he admitted that this family isn't just restructuring, isn't just on different paths, and isn't just living in separate homes. It's broken, and every bond that fell apart along the way has left a mark he can't hide anymore. This story isn't just about the divorces. It's about what happens when the person who insisted he was always right starts looking back and realizing that maybe he wasn't, maybe the wives weren't crazy, maybe the kids weren't disloyal, maybe the life he demanded wasn't sustainable, maybe everything he defended for decades is the very thing that destroyed his family. But to understand how we got here, this sudden openness from a man who built his brand on shutting down real conversations, we have to go back to the moment everything started to fall apart. Because this isn't a clean story. It's not even a fair one. It's a trail of choices, disappointments, shifting loyalties, and quiet resentments that grew louder every year. So let's start with the theory everyone's been whispering. Kody didn't just lose his marriages, he lost the loyalty of nearly every one of his adult children, and now he's finally admitting why. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're discussing something the show never really explains. At least not in a straight line. Kody Brown is finally talking about his divorces and the distance between him and most of his older kids. And for a man who usually turns every tough moment into a lecture or blame game, this shift is hard to ignore. The main question people ask in near unison is pretty simple. Why now? Why suddenly is he reflecting, making half-sentence apologies, and copping to having handled things wrong? Because if you've watched him for years, you know that is almost never what he does unless it is absolutely necessary. And that is exactly what has been happening. Kody isn't talking now because he is healed or enlightened. He is talking now because his family structure has totally collapsed, and the silence no longer serves him. It doesn't hold the image. It doesn't convince the audience that everything's fine. The storylines he used to build around unity don't exist anymore. The wives that defended him aren't there. The kids who tried to earn his attention stopped trying, and the one household that still has him, Robin's, can't carry the emotional weight of this entire franchise. That is why this moment matters. He is not giving explanations just to explain. He is giving explanations because the spotlight has turned into a mirror, and now everyone sees what the wives were trying to say for years. He wasn't the only one hurting, but he was the one with the most power to stop the hurt, and he never did. Today we break this down in a clear path, how each marriage ended, how the kids pulled away, what Kody admits now, and what he still refuses to see. And this isn't about tearing him apart or defending him. It is about understanding how a family this large, this committed, and this well-known unraveled in real time, and why the man at the center finally broke his silence. Here is the idea that keeps coming up. And honestly, it lines up with everything we've watched unfold. Kody didn't just lose his marriages because of conflict. He lost them because he stopped showing up, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, as a father, and as a partner. As the person he insisted he was. And once the disconnect started, it spread through the entire family like a slow leak. You don't notice it at first, but then every tire is flat. A lot of viewers assume the divorces were all about jealousy between the wives, or the stress of plural marriage, or the chaos of too many kids. But when you look at what the adult children say now, and when you listen to Kody's own words, something different stands out. He created rules for everyone else, but he never really followed them himself. He expected loyalty from wives who didn't feel heard. He demanded respect from kids who didn't feel seen. He preached unity while building a system where he was the final authority, and everyone else was waiting for attention in a house he barely visited. It wasn't sustainable, and deep down he knew it. So when Kody talks now about broken bonds, he almost treats it like it was inevitable. But nothing about this was inevitable. It was built, brick by brick, over years of choices he doesn't like talking about unless someone else brings them up first. This theory makes sense for one reason. It explains why every relationship fell apart in the same pattern. The wives didn't all leave for different reasons. The kids didn't all distance themselves for different reasons. The outcome looks different for each person, but the root is the same, and the root is him. But to really understand how this pattern showed up, you have to look at the first major crack, his marriage to Christine, and the way he now talks about it, because once that relationship ended, it didn't just mark a breakup. It marked the moment the family stopped pretending everything was fine. To understand how everything started unraveling, you have to go back to the moment when Christine finally said she was done. That wasn't the first fight, and it wasn't the first time she felt pushed aside. It was simply the first time she stopped pretending she believed things would ever change. For years, Christine tried to hold the family together with positivity and patience. She kept the holidays running, she supported the other wives, she raised her kids with as much stability as she could create, and she kept showing up even when Kody stopped showing up for her. But the shift didn't happen overnight. It wasn't one argument, it wasn't one moment of jealousy or one disagreement about intimacy. It was thousands of small things. It was the years of watching him choose comfort over connection. It was the frustration of being told the family mattered while he spent all his energy in one house. It was the realization that the version of marriage she believed in didn't exist for her anymore. The turning point came when she stopped seeing a husband and started seeing a man who only came around when it benefited him. And the kids noticed. They've talked about it openly now, how their relationship with their dad changed long before COVID, long before the big fights on camera, long before the final breakup. Christine was the first to say it out loud. I deserve more than this. And once she said it, you could see something shift across the whole family. Her kids felt validated. The other wives felt validated. Even some of Kody's kids from other households quietly admitted they saw the same patterns. And Kody, he didn't know what to do with a wife who wasn't willing to keep the peace anymore. That is why her leaving hit him harder than he admits. It wasn't just a divorce. It was the first time the family narrative publicly cracked, and he couldn't spin it into unity. After Christine left, the other relationships didn't just weaken. They collapsed because once one person tells the truth, the room can't go back to silence. And that is exactly what happened with Janelle. She watched what Christine did, she listened to her kids, and she realized she'd been carrying the weight of a relationship that Kody stopped trying to repair a long time ago. So when Kody reflects now on broken bonds, he acts surprised, almost confused. But anyone who watched the slow build-up knows that Christine wasn't the domino. She was just the first one brave enough to tip over. And once she did, every hidden fracture became impossible for anyone, including Kody, to ignore. Kody Brown has always been a man of contradictions. On television, he is confident, assertive, a patriarch with plans for a large, loving family. But behind closed doors, the narrative is far more complicated. In interviews and rare public comments, he often frames himself as someone carrying a burden too heavy to show fully. And for many fans, his recent silence about the divorces and fractured relationships has been confusing. I never wanted it to get this far, he admits quietly. These words might sound like a cliché, but when you take into consideration the structure of his family and the intensity of living under constant scrutiny, the weight behind them becomes clearer. Kody's struggle is not just with divorce. It is with the realization that his decisions have reshaped the lives of those he loves most. The relationships with his children are particularly strained. Kody acknowledges that distance has grown between him and several of his kids. Some have openly criticized him online, others avoid cameras, and cameras avoid them. It is not easy for a father who devoted decades to a polygamous lifestyle to suddenly face separation. Not just from a spouse, but from the very people who define his identity as a parent. Kody describes moments of quiet reflection where he wonders where things went wrong. Was it his inability to prioritize one relationship over another? Was it the constant pressure of living a public life that forced choices he might never have? Made otherwise, these questions don't have easy answers. And for a man like Kody, admitting vulnerability has always been a challenge. His silence, though frustrating to outsiders, comes from a place of complexity. He has a deep sense of responsibility and guilt, a desire to protect his children from conflict even as he navigates his own emotional turmoil. Kody's voice in recent interviews is softer, more hesitant, as if every word carries the weight of years of public judgment and private pain. Behind the cameras, he admits to sleepless nights and moments of regret. There is a recurring thought. Could he have done more to prevent the rifts? Could he have been more present, more honest, more attentive? These questions haunt him. Yet Kody also defends the choices he made, insisting they were guided by a belief in family unity, even when that unity proved impossible. His reflections extend to his divorces, now seen through a prism shaped both by hindsight and accountability. He admits, some separations were inevitable, and some fractures deeper than anyone anticipated. But the challenge, he says, is living with the consequences. The empty rooms, the fragmented celebrations, the birthdays and holidays that feel incomplete. Kody's struggle is further compounded by the perception of fans and critics. Online narratives paint him either as a villain or a victim, rarely as a father trying to reconcile love with reality. He feels misunderstood, but continues to speak carefully, aware every word has the potential to inflame or soothe. His public silence is not avoidance, but deliberation. In this quiet contemplation, Kody also reveals glimmers of hope. He talks of the importance of maintaining connections, even when they are very limited. He shares stories of small victories, a lunch with a distanced child, a conversation with one grown-up who now understands more about him. Such moments are rare, but they are sweet, and bring into view a part of Kody drowned out often by drama. A father who desperately, silently tries to rebuild bonds. Even when relationships are strained, Kody insists he has learned from his mistakes. He underlines the importance of communication, honesty, and accountability. Though he cannot make up for the past, he hopes to show the children resilience and effort. And for a man whose life has been scrutinized for decades, the acknowledgement of mistakes publicly doesn't come without its merits. This perspective, Kody's perspective, adds nuance to what many see as a simple story of divorce and broken bonds. It is that part of a human being that has often been reduced to headlines and soundbites. The struggle continues, and the path to healing remains uncertain. Kody's reflections show that behind every fractured relationship lies a story of intention, regret, and relentless pursuit for connection. As Kody continued, the conversation shifted to the daughters he felt he was most disconnected from. He conceded in a rare vulnerable moment that sometimes he wondered if his absence had caused irreparable damage. There was a pause, a weighty silence, before he added that he thought constantly about the choices he made. Leaving plural marriage, remarrying, navigating his relationships with Robin and the other wives, and how those decisions rippled through his family. He confessed that while he'd like to believe his children understand, he knows some of the hurt they carry will never completely disappear. He eventually brought up Aurora and how difficult it was for him to accept her growing independence. He spoke candidly about protective instincts that sometimes overstepped boundaries, how he wanted to protect her from heartbreak, yet he was aware that in doing so he may have pushed her further away. Kody explained that a part of him felt blame, while another part questioned whether some of the tension came from her partners or life circumstances. He had an evident struggle with the complexity of responsibility and guilt, trying to articulate feelings that had festered over years. At this point, the conversation took a turn toward public perception. Kody mentioned that often fans would see the highlight reels of family interactions, the staged for television moments, but the reality, he said, was far messier. He admitted to often feeling misunderstood, his intentions misread, and his public image not always aligning with his personal struggles. He paused, reflecting on how the cameras only captured fragments of his life, creating narratives that sometimes distorted the truth. The interviewer asked about his older daughters and how they had responded to his divorce from their mother, and a pensive expression crossed Kody's face. He acknowledged that some relationships had cooled over time, that miscommunications and unmet expectations had created distance. "I want them to know," he said softly, "that I love them, even if it doesn't always show in the ways they expect." He explained that he tries to be present, even if from a distance, and that he wishes he had found better ways to connect after the family's dynamics shifted. Then there was the discussion with him regarding his relationship with Robin and how that had affected the rest of the family. Kody said that he still loved Robin deeply, but the challenge of juggling plural marriages, combined families, and the scrutiny that came with living in the public eye was very difficult to manage sometimes. He admitted to mistakes made in times when he could have opened up more, and times when he didn't think on a deeper level about wives or children. "I am human," he said in a quiet, nearly defensive tone. Kody then addressed his younger daughters, those he said he felt closest to, and conceded that favoritism, or perceived favoritism, was a recurring theme. He attempted to explain that each child had different needs, different personalities, and that he sometimes misjudged how much attention or guidance each required. The conversation was raw, unfiltered, and at times uncomfortable, but it showed a side of Kody viewers rarely see on camera. A man grappling with the consequences of his past, trying to balance love, regret, and responsibility. He also reflected on the broader implications of leaving polygamy. He spoke about how stepping away from that lifestyle affected not only his marriage, but the family structure, inheritance expectations, and relationships among siblings. He admitted that some children struggled more than others, and that navigating these waters was a constant balancing act. And he did wonder whether some of the rifts could have been avoided with more transparency, more patience, or more self-awareness. Throughout this part of the conversation, Kody's tone was both defensive and remorseful. He tried to convey that while he had made choices that weren't always popular or easy, his intention was never to harm. Still, he admitted that his actions did have consequences, and he could not control how every child would interpret his decisions. This candid acknowledgement marked a rare glimpse into the personal accountability he was trying to embrace. He further stated that, at times, he had the feeling of being hemmed in by expectations, both his and other people's. The way fans, media, and even relatives seemed to project ideals onto him were actually hard to balance with reality. Kody confessed that such pressures have occasionally clouded his judgment, leading him to do things that are not considerate or thoughtful at all. Nevertheless, despite these mistakes, he mentioned a number of times that his love for his children would never waver. As the conversation developed, he spoke of hopeful moments, those moments when reconciliation could be possible, misunderstandings could be crossed, and a family might find common ground. He spoke of small gestures, phone calls, and short visits that, insignificant as they may seem, are of great emotional value. He agreed that it would take time, patience, and effort for trust to rebuild, but he expressed a wish to at least try. Finally, Kody spoke about his legacy. He said he didn't want to leave behind a fractured family, but wanted to be remembered not for his mistakes but for the love and guidance he was able to provide, if any. Some wounds will never heal, he knew. Instead, maybe openness, communication, and a willingness to listen could cure some of the cracks. It was a sobering, honest reflection on a life marked by complexity, love, mistakes, and the pursuit of connection with his children. As the interview progressed, Kody turned the conversation to how his divorces had affected his sons, admitting he was far more concerned about their emotional well-being than anyone would see. He confessed that being physically absent at times due to work, filming, or personal obligations left gaps in guidance and mentorship that he now regretted. "I've always wanted to be a father who's there," he said, "but sometimes life, circumstances, and my own mistakes got in the way." Kody recounted specific instances when he felt he had failed to be present, moments that lingered in his mind as silent reminders of his shortcomings. He spoke about holidays missed, birthday parties overlooked, and times when disagreements with his wives interfered with his ability to spend quality time with his children. These admissions were striking because, for the first time, Kody openly acknowledged the personal cost of his choices, not just on himself, but on those he loved most. The discussion naturally turned to communication, or the lack thereof, between him and his adult children. Kody explained that some of the distance was due to misunderstandings that grew over time, compounded by pride and stubbornness on both sides. He admitted that he sometimes struggled to articulate his feelings clearly, leading to assumptions, hurt feelings, and fractured relationships. He paused for a moment, reflecting on how easy it was to let small misunderstandings escalate into long-lasting tension. He then delved into the subject of trust, both earned and lost. Kody described how trust had been fragile in certain relationships, particularly with children who felt let down by promises unfulfilled or support inconsistently given. He acknowledged that rebuilding trust required not only time but visible actions, consistent presence, open dialogue, and a willingness to accept accountability. "I know words alone won't fix things," he said. "I have to show up, not just say I care." Kody also addressed the role of social media and public perception in the family dynamic. He noted that children, especially in the age of constant online scrutiny, sometimes internalized public narratives about him that weren't accurate. He admitted that it hurt to know that outside opinions could influence their perception of him. Yet he also understood that managing these impressions was beyond his control. This candid acknowledgement highlighted the tension between personal relationships and public life. The conversation shifted to forgiveness. Kody spoke emotionally about his hope that his children could one day forgive past mistakes, and that he could forgive himself for errors he felt haunted by. He expressed that forgiveness wasn't just about saying, "I'm sorry," but about rebuilding connections in a meaningful and lasting way. He reflected on moments when children distanced themselves and how difficult it was to respect their space while still yearning for closeness. Kody then recounted a poignant story about one of his sons reaching out unexpectedly after months of silence. He described the mix of relief, anxiety, and joy he felt when they talked, realizing that small gestures could reignite familial bonds. He emphasized that even fractured relationships had potential for healing, but that patience and consistent effort were essential. These anecdotes painted a picture of a man deeply invested in the reconciliation process, despite the pain of prior estrangements. He further explored the influence of his plural marriage past, noting that some children struggled with the concept of fairness, favoritism, and divided attention. Kody explained that navigating the complexities of polygamy and its aftermath required ongoing emotional labor, both for him and his children. He admitted that mistakes were inevitable, but that each misstep offered an opportunity to learn, grow, and adjust his approach toward family interactions. Throughout this part of the discussion, Kody's tone balanced reflection and vulnerability. He openly recognized the difficulty of his situation, yet consistently returned to the central theme, love for his children. He wanted viewers to understand that despite public portrayals and rumors, his intentions were rooted in care, even if execution sometimes faltered. His honesty offered insight into the challenges of maintaining familial connections under public scrutiny. The segment concluded with Kody emphasizing that every relationship required work, humility, and empathy. He acknowledged the road ahead would be difficult, filled with moments of discomfort and necessary self-examination. Yet, he expressed hope that through dialogue, understanding, and patience, bridges could be rebuilt and bonds strengthened, leaving room for growth, healing, and a renewed sense of family unity. As the conversation deepened, Kody turned to the subject of his daughters, noting that while some of the challenges with his sons were rooted in distance, the issues with his daughters were often emotional and nuanced. He spoke candidly about the difficulties in connecting with them as they grew older and formed their own identities separate from the family dynamic. "They're navigating life in ways I didn't always anticipate," he said. "Sometimes I feel like I'm learning to be a parent all over again." Kody reflected on specific memories, like bedtime conversations, school events, and personal milestones, emphasizing how he wished he had been more present during pivotal moments. He admitted that he sometimes let the weight of family logistics and marital disagreements interfere with his ability to prioritize meaningful interaction with each child individually. "Looking back, I see moments I should have been more attentive," he confessed, "and I regret letting small conflicts overshadow time with them." The discussion then turned to reconciliation. Kody described the delicate balance of giving his children space while also signaling his willingness to rebuild trust. He acknowledged that reconciliation is rarely linear, often coming in small, incremental steps rather than dramatic resolutions. Sometimes a simple phone call, a shared meal, or just listening can open doors that seemed closed forever, he said. These insights painted a vivid picture of the patience and humility required to repair strained familial bonds. Kody also touched on the role of his wives in maintaining connections with the children. He noted that while their presence was sometimes a stabilizing factor, conflicts among adults occasionally complicated communication. He admitted that disagreements in the past had unintentionally placed children in the middle, and he expressed sincere remorse for any added pressure or confusion this caused. "I never wanted them to feel torn," he said, "and I hope they understand that my intention has always been to love them fully, even when my actions fell short." He further discussed how the children's perceptions of him evolved over time. Kody observed that as children mature, their understanding of parental complexity deepens, sometimes leading to misunderstandings or resentment. He expressed hope that ongoing transparency, honesty, and effort would allow his children to see his intentions clearly, even if past mistakes had clouded the picture. "It's a process," he said, "but I believe clarity and sincerity can mend what's broken." A particularly emotional moment came when Kody spoke about the holidays. He admitted that family celebrations had often been stressful, fraught with tension and unmet expectations. Yet, he emphasized the importance of shared experiences and traditions, noting that even imperfect gatherings carried the potential to strengthen family ties. He reflected on times when children had distanced themselves during these events, expressing a longing for connection that resonated deeply. Kody also acknowledged the influence of outside narratives on family dynamics. He spoke about how rumors, media portrayals, and public opinions sometimes shaped his children's perceptions, creating challenges in trust and understanding. Despite this, he expressed determination to foster open communication and ensure that the truth of his intentions and his love was clear. "It's about cutting through noise and being genuine," he said. Even when it's hard or uncomfortable, the conversation shifted to personal growth. Kody emphasized that being a father wasn't static. It required continuous learning, adaptation, and reflection. He admitted that he had made mistakes and would likely make more, but he was committed to growing alongside his children, listening to their needs, and adjusting his approach as necessary. This candid reflection revealed a willingness to accept imperfection while striving for improvement. Kody concluded the segment with a message of hope. He expressed his desire to rebuild bonds with patience, empathy, and consistent action. He reminded viewers that even fractured relationships can heal when both sides engage in honest dialogue and mutual understanding. The overarching theme was clear: love and intention, combined with persistence and humility, could bridge gaps and restore familial connections. Kody's reflection shifted toward his approach to co-parenting in the wake of divorces and evolving family structures. He candidly admitted that co-parenting multiple households was far more complicated than he had anticipated. "It's a logistical puzzle every single day," he said. "There are schedules to juggle, emotions to navigate, and personalities to balance. And it's not always pretty." He elaborated on how differing parenting philosophies among his wives had created tension, both for him and the children. Kody admitted that while everyone had the same ultimate goal, raising happy, healthy kids, disagreements on discipline, routines, and communication had sometimes strained relationships. He emphasized that acknowledging these conflicts publicly was never his intention. It was simply part of the reality of a large, complex family. Kody also discussed the impact of public scrutiny on co-parenting. Being in the limelight meant that every decision, every disagreement, was often magnified and critiqued by the outside world. He confessed that this external pressure occasionally seeped into family life, making conversations more difficult and amplifying misunderstandings. "We had to learn to shield our kids from the chaos while also being honest," he said. "It's a delicate dance, and some days we stumbled more than we succeeded." He reflected on specific strategies he had implemented to strengthen communication with his children. Kody highlighted the importance of one-on-one time, emphasizing that each child needed personal attention to feel heard and valued. "I realize that group conversations aren't enough," he said. "Each of my kids has a unique voice and perspective, and I needed to make space for that." Kody admitted that there were moments when he felt defeated, when the challenges of fractured relationships seemed overwhelming. Yet, he insisted that perseverance was key. "I may not get it right every time," he said, "but the act of showing up, being present, and listening counts for more than perfection ever could." This honesty underscored a recurring theme: the tension between human imperfection and the desire for meaningful connection. He also spoke about the emotional toll of witnessing children struggle with divided loyalties. Kody explained that it was heartbreaking to see them feel caught between parents or confused by adult conflicts. He stressed that he wanted to create an environment where they could express themselves freely without fear of judgment or guilt. They should never feel like they have to choose sides, he said, his voice tinged with sorrow. The discussion turned to the role of forgiveness, both giving it and seeking it. Kody admitted that rebuilding trust required him to own past mistakes, while also encouraging his children to express their feelings openly. Forgiveness isn't just a word, it's action, he explained. It's showing that you're willing to do better and proving it every day. As he concluded this segment, Kody emphasized that co-parenting, though fraught with challenges, also offered opportunities for growth. He highlighted the lessons learned about patience, empathy, and flexibility, acknowledging that the journey was ongoing and never without hurdles. The message was clear. Even in fractured circumstances, love, effort, and accountability could create a foundation for healing. Kody's thoughts then shifted to the role that extended family played in maintaining connections. Amid the divorces, he spoke about the importance of grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins in providing stability and continuity for the children. Sometimes, they're the glue that keeps everyone connected, he said. They offer perspective, guidance, and unconditional love that helps soften the impact of change. He shared a few personal anecdotes, recalling times when family gatherings became emotional lifelines. One memory that stood out involved a holiday dinner where, despite the tensions and unspoken grievances, the children were able to feel a sense of normalcy and joy. Kody admitted that witnessing these moments gave him hope and reinforced his commitment to maintaining strong familial bonds. It reminded me why all the effort is worth it, he reflected. Kody also spoke to the lessons he had learned about patience. He said that relationships, particularly those involving adult children pursuing their own lives, could not be rushed or forced. You can't demand closeness, he said. It has to develop naturally, and sometimes you have to step back and let space work its magic. The forced interaction, he stressed, generally created more resentment than reconciliation in return. He reflected candidly on some of his past mistakes, admitting that, at times, pride and stubbornness got in the way of open communication. Kody shared that these patterns were painful to recognize, though highly necessary for progress to take place. I had to face my own flaws before I could hope to mend things, he admitted. It's not easy, but it's part of being human. The conversation then turned to the role of shared experiences in rebuilding bonds. Kody insisted that simple, consistent gestures, from attending a child's event and sharing meals to going on walks, made a profound impact. The moments, he noticed, allowed for conversation, laughter, and understanding, all key elements in repairing fractured relationships. Kody also addressed the emotional burden of public perception. He knows full well viewers of sister wives might see conflict, distance, or tension and believe it defines the entirety of his relationships. He said reality is decidedly more nuanced, peppered with moments of connection that rarely make it to the cameras. People see snippets, but life is bigger than that, he said. There's love, growth, and reconciliation happening off-screen every day. Kody reflected on hope as the guiding principle behind his efforts. He admitted some days were harder than others, but he remained committed to the work of building stronger, healthier relationships with each child. Hope is what keeps me showing up, he said. Even when things feel broken, love has the power to heal it. Then, Kody opened up about the ongoing challenges of co-parenting amid divorces. He explained that balancing different households, schedules, and expectations was a constant exercise in patience and flexibility. It is not just about showing up, he said. It is about being present in the way your children need you, even when it is inconvenient or emotionally taxing. He admitted there were days when frustration and fatigue made it hard to stay positive, but he stressed the importance of perseverance. Kids can sense when you are genuinely engaged versus when you are just going through the motions, Kody said. That authenticity matters more than any grand gesture. Kody also reflected on the role of forgiveness in rebuilding relationships. He confessed that he had to forgive himself for past mistakes, as well as learn to accept forgiveness from his children when tensions arose. Holding on to guilt only creates walls, he explained. Once you let go, you create space for understanding and reconnection. He shared an example of a particularly difficult period with one of his adult children when a disagreement had led to weeks of silence. Kody described the slow process of rebuilding trust, reaching out, listening without judgment, and acknowledging the other person's perspective. "It took patience, humility, and a lot of heart," he said. "But eventually, we found common ground again." Kody underlined the importance of communication tools in this process. Whether through letters, texts, or phone calls, he emphasized that consistent efforts to reach out, even with small messages, helped maintain a sense of connection. He noticed that children of any age appreciate feeling remembered and valued, especially when lives are busy and complicated. He also touched on the lessons learned from therapy and counseling, both for himself and within the family. "Professional guidance can help you see patterns you might not notice on your own," he said. "It is not a weakness, it is an investment in relationships that matter most." Kody reflected on the long-term vision for his family. He admitted that healing was ongoing, and not every relationship would be perfect. Yet he remained committed to showing up, listening, and being a constant presence. "Love isn't about perfection, it's about persistence," he said. "Even when things are broken, the effort to repair them is what counts." Kody then addressed the impact of public scrutiny on his family dynamics. Being in the spotlight meant that every decision, every argument, and every moment of vulnerability could be magnified and judged. "There's a pressure that comes with living your life on television," he said. "Sometimes, it feels like you're performing rather than living, and that can take a toll on relationships." He revealed how this constant observation affected his communication with his children. "When kids grow up under cameras, they develop their own defenses," Kody explained. "Some become guarded, some withdraw, and others act out. Understanding their perspective is key, but it's not always easy." Kody spoke candidly about the challenges of maintaining boundaries. He admitted that there were times he struggled to protect his children's privacy while still being transparent about his own experiences. "You want to share your story, but you also want to shield them from unnecessary pain," he said. "It's a delicate balance, one I'm still learning to navigate." He also discussed the lessons he learned about patience and timing. Some conversations with his children couldn't be rushed. They had to wait until everyone was ready to engage. "Honestly," Kody reflected, "you can't force understanding or reconciliation. You can only offer space, love, and consistency." Kody shared a particularly emotional moment when he realized that one of his younger children felt disconnected from him due to misunderstandings and distance. He recounted the steps he took to rebuild trust, shared activities, listening sessions, and small gestures of care. "It wasn't about grand declarations," he said. "It was about showing up every day in small, meaningful ways." He emphasized that reconciliation doesn't erase pain. "Acknowledging hurt is essential," Kody said. "Pretending it didn't happen only prolongs the divide. Healing comes from facing it together, even when it's uncomfortable." Kody reflected on long-term hope for his family. And though the road to rebuilding bonds is an ongoing one, he held out hope that with consistent effort, understanding, and compassion, relationships can be repaired. "It's about building bridges, not walls," he said. "Even at a broken point, connections can be strengthened with patience and love." Kody openly talked about the personal toll caused by him always trying to mediate between his wives and children. "Being the middle point in any relationship is exhausting," he admitted. "It's even more complicated when emotions run high and everyone feels the weight of past mistakes." He recalled how sometimes things would escalate over a misunderstanding or some small slight or a difference in expectations. Kody admitted there are times when he felt totally powerless, watching conflicts unfold, despite his best efforts to help solve them. "There were times I questioned whether I was failing as a father and husband," he said, his voice heavy with regret. Kody also reflected on the emotional fatigue of balancing multiple households. With each relationship demanding attention, empathy, and care, their demands often left him stretched thin. "I love my family deeply, but it's not easy to give equal emotional energy to everyone at once," he explained. "I had to learn to prioritize, but even then, it wasn't perfect." He shared a poignant story of how a holiday brought about through miscommunication didn't go as planned, clashing plans, unmet expectations, and a family fight that spilled out in front of the children. Kody remembered feelings of guilt, understanding that in trying to manage everything, at times he overlooked the emotional needs of his kids. "That day taught me the importance of listening before acting and of humility in apologizing," he admitted. Despite these struggles, Kody put great emphasis on lessons learned. He described how he began documenting moments of gratitude and growth within the family, celebrating small victories, acknowledging efforts, and highlighting positive interactions. Focusing on what's going right, instead of only what's wrong, slowly changes the atmosphere, he said. Kody also acknowledged the role of forgiveness in moving forward. It's not just about forgiving others, he explained. It's about forgiving myself too. Mistakes don't define you if you're willing to learn and grow from them. He concluded this reflection in quiet hope for the future. Family is complicated, Kody admitted, but love can be stronger than mistakes. I'm committed to rebuilding, reconnecting, and finding peace one step at a time. As the conversation drew to a close, Kody reflected on the journey that had shaped him over the years. He spoke candidly about the mistakes, the heartbreak, and the lessons learned. I've been through a lot, he said, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. I've hurt people, and I've been hurt, but every experience has taught me something about patience, empathy, and the true meaning of family. He shared a story about reconnecting with one of his children after months of distance. It wasn't easy, Kody admitted. There were walls built over years of misunderstandings. But we started small phone calls, texts, spending time together without expectations. Slowly, trust began to return, and with it, a renewed sense of connection. Kody also addressed the public perception of his family, acknowledging the scrutiny that comes with reality television fame. People see snapshots of our lives, he said. They don't see the long nights of reflection, the conversations behind closed doors, or the constant work to maintain relationships. It's messy, but it's real. He emphasized the importance of honesty and transparency, not just with the public, but within the family itself. We have to speak openly about our feelings, Kody explained. Avoiding conflict doesn't make it disappear, it only makes it grow. Communication is the key to healing, even when it's uncomfortable. Looking forward, Kody expressed a cautious optimism. I know there are challenges ahead, he admitted, but I also know there is love. Family isn't perfect, and we never will be, but we can choose to grow, to forgive, and to support each other. Finally, Kody left viewers with a heartfelt message. Life is complicated, relationships are complicated, but love, patience, and understanding can bridge the gaps we create. I'm committed to my family, to making things right where I can, and to cherishing the moments that matter most. With that, he offered a sincere smile, the kind that comes from hard-won reflection, leaving an impression of hope, resilience, and a father determined to mend the bonds that truly matter.